You gotta love the reward that these kids get for passing grades and just the manga that they get to read. Always brings a giant grin to my face whenever the show, it doesn't do it too often, but when it does reference manga from our own world or just the creation of manga in this medieval-like world, it's always entertaining. And while I would have loved nothing more than Season 2 to be able to kick off with the content we just witnessed in Episode 4, it was important to re-establish the content that they didn't get to adapt in the first season, because honestly, how the hell would it work if we didn't see all of this fluff that was set up in order to form alliances before the Great War breaks out, which is apparently being claimed as a holy war, which is pretty scummy with how they're going about it, but from a strategic perspective, this other kingdom, it kinda seems like game set match, but then again, this is Tempest, they've had pretty good luck all things considered, but you know what they say, luck eventually runs out, so I guess time will tell where this is going. I think a lot of people who are watching Season 2, I've seen quite a few people say, you know, I just want to see more story stuff, I want to see more of this. And I think if this content was in Season 1, you wouldn't see as many of those comments because we weren't walking into Season 1 necessarily expecting non-stop story and insanity. We were expecting kind of like a civilization creator where you have slimes meet other characters and form civilizations and build the nation, the Tempest. But walking into Season 2, I heard nothing but hype about the crazy story arc that Season 2 was going to kick off with. So I think a lot of times, that hype can kind of blind you of what to expect. For me personally, as someone who enjoys the slice of life, and that was kind of the dominating force of Season 1, this season has been very entertaining to me, but I have to be the first to admit, around the halfway point, which is surprising about where the story kind of takes off, I was getting a little burnt out. I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm really hoping by the end of this episode, we really start getting into gear of something big happening. And the second half of this episode is basically all of that. I enjoyed the first half. I mean, my boy Datta got slam dunked. He looked pretty bruised and beaten, and it cracked me up. I love seeing just the wholesomeness, the simpleness, and just the idea of forming more and more alliances. I think that's important, and even before war breaks out, the idea of having peace treaties be signed, the idea that you'll fight for them and they'll hopefully fight for you if anything happens, famous last words, nothing will ever happen to Tempest, even before the war was declared, you knew it was going to happen. And I think to myself, you know, after having 3.5 episodes, I'm content. I'd like to see something more, because this is basically what we've come to expect from Slime. Show me something that's different, and then immediately, as if my prayers are being answered, they said, okay, Brandon, here you go. Here's a king who sees his kingdom falling to ruin because before, traitors had to come into their kingdom. But now, with these new alliances being formed, they can completely avoid their kingdom, meaning that they're kind of at the point of life or death where financial stability is going to be gone, and who knows what's going to happen next. In order to recoup the losses, they'll probably have to raise taxes, and those taxes will probably force people away to different kingdoms. No matter how you look at it for this type of period, the only answer is war. And for viewers watching, that makes for very exciting content. I think watching this meeting take place, it could have been very boring, it could have been very dry, it could have felt like unseasoned chicken, and you're just kind of having a disgusted face wondering why we have to consume it. But watching a table of diplomats just kind of strategize on how to deal with it, the fact that a nation run by monsters has tens of thousands of basically warriors at their disposal, how are you going to deal with it? Well, we're going to need more help. I think he throws a number like 17,000 or something at the king, saying that's how many we could mobilize in order to attack, and that's not enough from their perspective. But if these monsters attack first, then the church can get involved, and they can join in on the fray. It's completely BS, there's no other way to put it, but from pure strategy point of view, it's genius because it won't make them look bad, despite literally Tempest just defending themselves from invaders. It's so interesting to see how they're warping the truth in order for their own victory, and say it all the time in videos, I mean, the victors write history, right? I mean, if they end up winning, you're gonna have no one say they did something scummy, they were just protecting themselves from the evil monsters that were deceiving humanity. Because, well, you know, monsters, how can you trust them? Why would we want to talk with monsters? They're evil demons, let's cut them apart and sell them for jewels, right? So I think that's quite fascinating, and it really does set in motion where the story is going to get going. I mean, we have the traitor already among our ranks who is slowly kind of seeing the ways of what the nation of monsters really is, and is already blending in quite well, and despite her saying, you know, I'm just doing this because my lord ordered, you do get the sense that there could be this teeter-tottering thought process of, do I fight for them or do I fight for my lord? And obviously, you know, it's not going to be an easy switch, but you already are getting the kind of seeds of doubt planted in her mind. And I'm hoping we get to see something with that, even if it doesn't happen immediately. I'd be perfectly fine seeing it over the course of season 2, whether that's in this court or even in the next one. But also just the simple idea of just finishing up these trays, because really it would be impossible to have season 2 function without these past 3.5 episodes. Because the second half of this episode, it really was taking what we didn't have in season 1 and making it work. I think alliances are the type of content that shows like these kind of forget. And while you can say, well, Slime itself forgot about it because, look at season 1, it wasn't here. The brilliance of Slime formula is that they can reintroduce content that happened episodes back and naturally make it feel like it works with a few adjustments here and there. Having these alliances is what makes, I think, Slime's world so great. I constantly see people say, like, why do you want to watch Slime? Rimuru himself is just a very overpowered character. And while there definitely are more powerful characters than Rimuru that we've experienced already, and Rimuru will become probably the most powerful character by the end of the series, the thing that you watch Slime for, at least initially with season 1, is it acts like a civilization game, where you're building these civilizations. Sometimes things happen that are outside of your control, but naturally as the player, you're probably going to be able to defeat it with enough planning and strategizing. But then in this season, you're starting to see that after all this buildup, after creating such a vast kingdom with wealth, power, technology, there now is the threat from other kingdoms, because they didn't form alliances with every single kingdom out there, and it's impossible to form alliances with every single kingdom. I mean, in last episode with the whole Dwarven Kingdom, we made an alliance there, and the king is saying, I hate this other king, be careful. How are you going to naturally befriend this king if the other king hates him and they're probably already trying to have war, right? It actually does have a really good political side to it, and it really makes it quite fascinating, while also sprinkling in just a lot of funny faces, a lot of funny jokes, and just humorous and entertaining slice of life scenes. This is a show that's very remarkable in the isekai genre, because while it technically follows a lot of the similar formulas you've seen, when you really break down what the focus is, and I'd argue it is on the civilization factor of the show with all the characters being an added bonus, it really does become that time I got reincarnated as a slime. For an episode that actually kind of had me a little burnt out around the midway point, it actually turned around to being the most engaging episode of season 2 yet. I mean, I wouldn't say I would change anything about the intro to this season. I think it's all important, I think it's funny, I think it's entertaining. But I mean, I think, like with many, we're thinking, okay, let's really hope the plot's going to get going, and we knew it was going to get going. A lot of source readers were saying, wait till episode 5 and 6, that's when it's really going to take off. But when you are watching the show for a month, it's natural to say, I hope some story does get going, and even though the setup is part of the story, you were hoping for a war or something like that. Most people were. And they delivered on it, they delivered an episode that's engaging, it feels like there's payoff, and with Rimuru, officially retiring from teaching and going back to Tempest, there's going to be some insanity for sure, and I'm excited to see where the twists and turns are going to take us, because there's going to be backstabbing, there's going to be betrayals, there's going to be new alliances, and I'm wondering if the alliances that have been formed are actually going to kind of raise up their banners in order to protect a nation of monsters, or if they're going to go back on their word. Time will tell. I think there's going to be a lot of things that are going to happen in Season 2, and I'm quite excited for more. Voice acting remains on point. The animation, despite not having too much movement in the episode, where it was quite fun. I mean, you kick off with some adorableness with the melting of the slime, pretending that the kids failed their test. There was a lot of good stuff in this episode, and episode 5, things are going to be heating up, and I am excited for more. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Where do you think episode 5 and the remainder of Season 2 is going to go, with apparently a holy war taking place? If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share your support, and hit that subscribe button if you happen to be new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.